Good day, everyone watching. Welcome to the third edition, or rather, the third webisode of Leaving You with a Thought web series. My name is Fulfirondo, and for today, I would like to discuss Canibusiness, which is just a word derived from cannabis and business. Before I start off on that, I would like to thank everyone who have watched the previous two episodes. Thank you. Please continue watching and make sure to leave me a thought. For those of you who haven't watched the previous two episodes that I've uploaded, please revert back to those two and then leave me with a thought. And subscribe as well. Hit that button. It won't kill you. So, Canibusiness. So obviously this is coming from the judgment that the Constitutional Court rendered out on the 18th of September, legalizing the growing and cultivating of weed. So basically the judgment or the ruling was that you are now legally allowed to grow, farm, cultivate and possess and use marijuana or weed as long as you do it in your own private space or in your home, typically. Obviously, the rest of the details have been left out for the legislature to iron out. Things like how much, as to how much marijuana will you be able or allowed to use, the legal limit of the amount of weed you can have on you at a time, and the amount that probably you'll be able to take. I'm sure they will start testing for it in the roads, just as they do for alcohol. But I just have a question, it's interesting. It'll be interesting to find out what happens, because a company as well does count as a private property, because it does belong to someone, right? So will people be allowed to smoke weed there, or will it be treated as a public area because there are other employees as well? Or will the code of conduct within the company sort of like supersedes or overrides whatever the legal law is of the country? I don't know, but I'm assuming it will be the last option. Every company will have to abide by the code of conduct that it is set for its policies, I suppose. But personally, on my side, I just felt that the ruling fell short of the key important thing. They could have taken it a step further and say, listen, while we're on this subject, we might as well regulate the selling of marijuana, and also decriminalize and legalize the trading or the selling of marijuana, because that for me was the most important thing. People were smoking marijuana irregardless of what the court said. Yes, there were people being arrested for being in possession of it, but that's very insignificant compared to the to the benefits that could come about from the allowing or the legalizing of selling of marijuana, because it would generate large amounts of income. I mean, if you look at and this is not unique to South Africa. I mean, South Africa is just following suit to other countries that have already done it. If you look at United States of America, for instance, they have about 29 states that have already legalized the selling of marijuana, and basically you're allowed to farm it. Obviously it's regulated and highly taxed, and then you're allowed to sell it for recreational purposes or for medicinal purposes through dispensaries. So, but it's highly taxed. So the benefit from the government is that while people are having fun or taking marijuana for medicinal purposes or whatever reason it is, the government also gets the piece of the cake, which is for the economy is good. I mean, in 2021, study shows that America should be generating about $21.2 billion from the sale and trading of marijuana. This is the entire value chain: farming, selling it to dispensaries for medicinal purposes, and selling it to coffee bars for recreational purposes. Like this entire food chain, and most states will only join. So this business will only grow because there's a large amount of people who are, who seem to be for weed. And so obviously the United States decided to take, most states have already decided to take advantage of it and, make money through it. And why not? If the government can make money through it, why not do it? And it also makes things easier that way, because then people will be able to sell it without, fear of being prosecuted. But also the government will make money from it as well. Another good example would be the Netherlands, who have been doing it, I think, as early as the 2000s. Could be even way before that, I'm not sure. Where, they did actually study and realize that in 2015 they had made more money than they actually realized for that year. The initial results had shown that they made 2.3 billion euros. 2.3 billion euros was generated from the sale of marijuana. And when they did their recalculations, because they actually realized that only 20% of the 40% that they think it's locally grown in Netherlands was confiscated. So the police only found 40%, but of the 40% they only confiscated 20%. So meaning that the 20% that they didn't confiscate was still in business. That would be a good assumption to make. So that increased the profits revenue to 4.8 billion US dollars. That, combined with other illegal activities being prostitution and drugs and whatever, they actually realized that the economy generated 6.6 billion euros. But of that 6.6 billion euros, 4.8 of it was attributed by the farming and the sale of marijuana alone. 4.8 billion euros. I can't even begin to imagine what that sum is like in terms of physical notes. That obviously was, like I said, added up to all the other legal activities like prostitution, totaled up to 6.6 billion, which was 1% of the entire GDP. So it just goes to show that if marijuana is allowed to be sold, or it's legalized for selling, and then people tax it accordingly, there's a lot of money to be made through the sale of marijuana. And I think South Africa should adopt the same model. It's not unique to South Africa. People will always do weed. People have been doing weed. We all know people who do weed. It's not even a matter of class or race or whatever. Everyone just, everywhere just know people who do weed. And it's a large market. There's a large market to service out there. And as such, I feel like the Constitutional Court, together with the government, they could have taken advantage of that fact, and then they could have just legalized the selling of it, especially living in a country where about 27% of the people who are able to work are not able to find placement for employment, especially considering that we're living in a third world developing state where the government needs a lot of money to be able to service or to render service to its people. You would imagine that the government can use more. The government can use more money. That's why they keep increasing our personal tax. So if they are in need of money, you would think that they will start taking these things of legalizing and decriminalization of weed seriously, and then they could actually go on to tax it, regulate it, and tax it for the purpose of collecting more to into their pots, into their tax pots. Whether or not they'll use it for service delivery or whatever, that's it's a question for another day. We live to see that. But I think that it will be a good thing for the government to do that. And also, I think for those people who are selling weed now, they should be a little bit worried, because what the ruling actually also mean for them is that now that private individuals are allowed to grow weed in their private homes, it means that people will grow weed in abundance, and then just like any product in economics, if there's a lot of product out there, flooded into the markets or into the streets, the value will obviously drop, because now the demand will not be as high as it used to be. So the market will be oversaturated. So those people who are already selling weed should be a little bit worried as well now, because it does not mean that they're gonna get a lot of customers. As time goes on, they will actually start losing customers, because people now will eventually grow it in their own private homes, because they are allowed to now. They're allowed to farm it now, and that means you just introduce more new players, or more private individuals who will just grow it for their own use, and their families, for their families' purposes only, purpose only. So if I was selling with weed now, I'll start thinking along those lines to say, how will I make sure that I stay in business? It's not legal to sell it now, but I'm saying if that was what the type of things I was into, I'll start thinking about how to sell it now, how to get it moving, because obviously, you, as a weed trader, you will need to find, as a weed merchant, you will need to find ways in which you will move your product, creative ways, and I mean, there's plenty of ideas out there already to start from, like space muffins. People have been doing that for years. I suppose it will add just a little. I mean, now people will be ingesting weed, but also they'll be eating something, which is a little bit different to just selling the dried up leaves as it is right now, because that market obviously will eventually die out when people are able to grow their own weeds. In the Netherlands, for instance, you buy it in a coffee bar, so you have your coffee bar and your muffin there, and you also have a blunt on the side of the of your cup, or tray, or whatever. So there's just small creative ways, or start a dispensary. So while it gets to it, when people start getting prescription, to help them take the edge off, or to help them dealing with hypertension and all those type of things, when doctors start prescribing weed as a preferred method of dealing with whatever illness or sickness patients will be dealing with, I think that's the type of thinking that all these weed merchants should start thinking along, to say, how do I set up my own dispensary so that I can start dispensing weed in a legal way, and obviously study the tax law of the country to say, how will it be taxed, how much of it will I be allowed to sell. I think in a long-term plan, long-term vision, that's what people should think, because I do believe that one day the government is gonna just come up and say, guys, we need more money. What are we gonna do? What can we do? We've squeezed that those pockets, we've squeezed those pockets over there. Which pockets are left? And somebody's gonna say, hey man, we haven't squeezed the weed pocket. Let's legalize it and then regulate it, and then the selling of it thereof, that's what I'm talking about, and then we can make money from that. And I think if you're selling weed and you are not thinking along those lines already, of when it gets to the point of when they start allowing you to sell it, then you might find yourself caught with your pants down, and actually you might suffer. That is already actually also happening in the States, where people were just selling it as it is. They found themselves in a hard position, as far as competition is concerned, because then you're competing with people who are dispensing it for medicinal purposes, and those people are likely to make more money, because whether they bribe or they lie to the doctor and say they have this, the doctor will prescribe it and they can take it using the legal route. Whereas if you're just selling it in the streets, you might be selling it and you will have to deal with the laws, and you can't bank the money, you can't do business, because the regulations are actually very strict and very tight. So yeah, I think the weed business is only gonna grow, man. In terms of people who use the amount of weed, it will only be those who are willing to be creative, in the business, who will stay in business. But the market is not going anytime soon. I think the market it's only gonna grow bigger and bigger. More people are just gonna continue using more weed. And as such, if you're creative about the way in which you sell your weed, I'm sure you'll stay in business for a very long time. There's a big opportunity here and a big market and it will service, and I think that those who will take the opportunity with both hands will succeed, if you're into those sort of things. That is my thought for today. Let me know what you think. I'm interested in hearing your thoughts. Please don't forget to subscribe. Thank you for watching. Cheers.